And some people have a problem even forgiving strangers. So like if somebody cuts them off in traffic, or somebody 3 weeks later they're talking about the person that stole their parking spot at the mall. It's like 3 weeks ago somebody I never knew before stole parking, but they're still mad at it. Or some people curse. Some people will go and they didn't let them in the lane. They'll go and chase. They follow the person or chase after them. The person tried to cut in and they're cursing at them. And it's like you don't even know the person. You were inconvenienced for like 3 seconds. You'll get where you're going to go 3 seconds later, but people are mad. They don't forgive. So it's easy to see how in relationships when people see some people all the time how if you can't forgive somebody who cost you 3 seconds, it's hard to forgive somebody who you see every day. And so compassion helps. We had a quote last week that said, compassion is seeing the flaws in the other person, but also seeing their pain. A compassionate person reacts to the pain, not the offense. So it's like when somebody does something bad to you, we don't necessarily react to, oh, this person did this to me, this person did that. Compassionate person will automatically say, oh, well, there must be a reason they did that. So it's not a matter of saying, oh, this person is selfish, this person is entitled. So instead of looking at what's wrong with this person, we think, well, why are they entitled or why are they selfish? And if we see that, then we don't judge them and we don't, it's easy to forgive them. So it's not always a matter of wrong or right. We can forgive them. So instead of saying, what's wrong with this person, a compassionate person says, what happened to this person? So if someone does something bad to you, instead of saying, what's wrong with you, is what happened to you? What's your story? Because from your view, that made sense. From their view, whatever they did to you, that was the sensible thing to do. So then how do we reconcile if it's time to reconcile? So like you said, we go to God first so we can pray about the person, but we can also go to God if we haven't forgiven the person yet. We want to go to God and say, and ask God to help you forgive, help change your heart, or you can go to God when you're still mad and, God, why did you let this happen to me? God, why could you let something like this happen to me? That's okay to go to God and pray that way.
Don't ask God to change their heart. You can ask God to change
your heart. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. You can ask God why it happened, and then there may be a point where you need to go, like the Matthew 18:15 said, you go to the other person. When you want to go to the other person, when you go to the other person, the goal is to win the relationship back. The goal isn't to win the argument. So when you go to the other person, so what are some of the goals of reconciliation? So you want to create an atmosphere of privacy. You don't want it to be a public thing. You want to prevent gossip from happening. You want an atmosphere of restoration, so not a confrontational atmosphere. You want to do it without judgment. So it's not about who's wrong, who's right. It's not about getting somebody to admit they're wrong. Without prejudice, and you want to spare them any shame if possible. And you want to diffuse insensitivity. I heard Jack Hibbs had a quote. He said, I will never really love someone unless my love is greater than the sin they committed against me. And then the opposite is true. If we know we've sinned against someone or if we've wronged someone, we need to go to them and try to reconcile it. And we don't go to them trying to get them to forgive us. We go to them to apologize for the sin we did. And if they don't forgive us, then that's their prerogative. So if someone has changed, if they say they've repented and they've changed, there should be evidence. There should be evidence in their behavior that they changed. If they say, "Oh, I'm sorry," if they have repented, there should be some evidence. Not necessarily that the evidence is necessary for forgiveness, but if they have repented, there should be some evidence. But in the same manner, if you've forgiven them, there should be some evidence. There should be a change in your behavior from when you were mad at them. If you're behaving the same way, then did you really forgive them? Because sometimes when we're mad at somebody, bitterness, maybe they repented and changed, but we have that character of them, so we don't notice that they have changed. So in conclusion, the ultimate question of the parable of the unforgiven servant is not what must I do for God to forgive me. It's not how many times should we forgive someone. The question is, will I forgive my brother or my sister? Jesus came to introduce us to a God who is no longer keeping record of our sins. He came to introduce us to a God who has wiped our debt clean for the past, present, and future sins. The servant's debt in the parable was forgiven. The servant wasn't eventually punished because he got back into debt. He was punished because of his relationship with the other servant. God is concerned with our relationships with our brethren, our relationships with other people, and ultimately our relationship with him. Peter was looking for a formula for forgiveness. Jesus emphasized that he should not look for a formula, how many times should I forgive? We should not look for the minimum acceptable number of times to forgive. We should not focus on the minimum requirements to get into heaven. Jesus is saying to stop religiously seeking for a specific number. Stop seeking to determine who's not my neighbor so I don't have to treat them well. Stop religiously following specific days on the calendar. Stop looking for a minimum amount to tithe. Jesus is more concerned with the condition of our heart. I should focus on how to become a loving and forgiving person. Jesus is trying to put an end to the rituals, put an end to the formulas, put an end to the religious traditions and practices. Jesus is telling us to focus on mending relationships and genuinely loving other people. Stop trying to focus on the formula to get into heaven. Focus on learning how I can maintain a relationship with my brother and sister. How can I peaceably live with my neighbor? How can I strengthen my relationship with God? The answer to those questions will inevitably lead you into heaven. The answer to those questions will inevitably lead you to God.